Good evening, eager Shakespeare students. This is your professor speaking. My name is Michael Martin. I'll be teaching this course this semester, and I really look forward to working with you. I know I've said that in my emails, but being able to reach you and speak with you in an online setting is something important to me. So this introductory discussion, less so than a lecture, is to set up Shakespeare's sonnets. I was going to talk about Much Ado About Nothing as well, but let me save that for a later lecture, probably at the very beginning of next week. And the reason I assigned you these sonnets is I wanted to give you a different glimpse into Shakespeare than just the plays. And I did not include plays that I thought you were familiar with, including Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet. Though I'm presuming you may have read Othello, but my point is that the sonnet should give us a better sense or a larger sense of Shakespeare's writing as a whole, his corpus, his body of work. And the sonnets are part of Shakespeare's world. When we think of his writing, we can't just think of his overall plays and the larger plays. We have to think of him as a poet as well. My thought is that you're going to find the sonnet rather artificial, especially as a modern reader of poetry, which has free verse and a lack of meter, that you'll find the sonnet a bit stilted. At the same time, just know that these are the poetic conventions of the time, of Shakespeare's Elizabethan era, and that Shakespeare had to work within them. And so I'm presuming you may have already read sonnets by John Donne, maybe John Milton, other writers who were experimenting at the time. If you can, kind of think of those poets in the back of your head as you read Shakespeare. I think of John Donne's The Flea, the complex way that the flea is used with blood to show a lover. And the flea took blood, why can't I, says the speaker of Donne's famous poem. So think of the poetry you already know, is what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way. The goal of this session is to introduce just a few brief ways you can get into the sonnets and look at the three sonnets I gave you this week. This week's work is rather light. Next week you do a quiz, you do an essay, and I'll post that primer fairly soon. But this week's work is pretty light. I want you to get into the work. I don't want you to be overwhelmed with assignment. I want you to be able to read the work and digest it and think about it in a purposeful way for this first week. And with that being said, let's get started. If I were to say on the quiz for next week, one thing I would want you to know about the sonnet as a form, Shakespeare, John Donne, otherwise, would be that they often use what's called conceit, C-O-N-C-E-I-T. And a conceit is an extended comparison. If I were to say my love is like a rose, think of those things in an analogy, a thing that is analogized as something else, as a sustained comparison throughout the poem. One of the hallmarks of 17th century metaphysical poetry. It's one of the hallmarks of Shakespeare's poetry, and it's the idea that there should be a sustained comparison in the three poems that we read, or at least there's some gesture towards it. It doesn't follow all the way through. So it's not just my love as a rose once. It's a comparison of my love as a rose throughout the duration of a given poem. So think of the poetic conceit. I'd also mention the poetic form of a sonnet. Sonnets are usually romantic love poems. They're done in 14 lines. For Shakespeare's particular form, he's using three quatrains followed by a rhyming couplet. A lot of critics suggest that the couplet sometimes changes or has a fulcrum or turning point to the rest of the poem. Sometimes it just reiterates the poem. There's not that change. There's not that fulcrum. But Shakespeare does do something unique with the final couplet. And basically, you'll see an A-B rhyme scheme, if you understand what I mean, in the three quatrains. So it's the traditional form of a sonnet. So with that being said, I'm trying to look up these poems. I have multiple screens and talk to you at once, so bear with me for a second. If you think about the second sonnet I gave you, it's sonnet 109, right? And I'm looking at 109. as I'm speaking to you. It says, "Oh, never say that I was false of heart, though absence seemed my flame to qualify. And easy might I from my soul depart, as from my soul which in thy breast doth lie." The first thing I want you to do is just turn off your analytical brain, or at least keep it on silent, and don't worry that you're missing the larger point of the poem. It first starts off with a declarative statement: "Don't say that my love was false," and is basically arguing in the negative that the speaker can't tell his beloved, which is a man, right? Which is a man in this one. Shakespeare was bisexual. At least his poems are written to a woman. Most of his poems are written to females. He was married to a woman. He also enjoyed younger men, and these were presumably some of his students, or pardon me, some of the people in his productions at the Globe Theater. So it's a love poem written for a man. Who cares? It's love. It doesn't matter. But the idea would be, um, in this respect, Shakespeare's saying to this person, right? "Oh, never say that I was false of heart, though absent seemed my flame to qualify, and easy might I from myself depart, as from my soul in which thy breast doth lie." He's basically saying, just my point is, don't overanalyze, try to paraphrase in modern language what Shakespeare's saying. He's basically saying, don't say I was false, I was true to you. Just because I'm absent from you, absent seemed my flame to qualify. It did not qualify, did not lessen it. I could leave you or depart you as easy as a flame could leave a fire, as a soul could leave a body. These things are impossible. Thus, that this is the larger conceit of his work. He's using a large-scale portrayal of impossibilities to show his devotion to his beloved. And I may have been mixed up. It's Sonnet 127. Pardon me. It's Sonnet 127, and then you have Sonnet 46 that clearly has a male-based pronoun within it. And so you look at the pronouns. That's how you figure out whether it's written to his mistress or whether it's written to a young male that he is enamored with in some respect. But for this one, I'd also note that Shakespeare uses the negative. "Oh, never say that I was false at heart" is the first line. And tell me if this rings a bell. If you know Shakespeare's sonnets, you may have heard, it's okay if you have not heard, this particular one: "My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips." And he goes into this reverse, it's called an emblazon. It's when a speaker lists the traits of his beloved, usually male. I'm using that pronoun purposefully. And in that list, list what the beloved can't be compared to. But Shakespeare's using, I would call it the via negativa, the things that the lover can't be qualified into, just like in our poem. In poem 109, it's the things that absence has not made a less in the speaker's love for his departed. So the conceit in this poem, it's both like these impossible things. He's listing the negative. "I am not this. You are, excuse me, you are not this. You are not this." Just like, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" I'm not going to go the traditional poetic route. You cannot be compared to a traditional summer day. But the idea would be, there's also another conceit here with distance and space and travel. And it's used at least 3 times. And the last time that it's used, we know that he's using it as a sustained conceit by saying, "For nothing this wide universe I call." That's the 13th line. "Save thou, my rose, in it thou art my all." And you get the impossibility of a rose containing one's beloved, as an object, a thing. You also get the wide universe. It's this discussion of travel. And you could go into Shakespearean travel, which I want you to look for in the plays, right? When we look at his plays, a lot of them are travel metaphors, or some of them are. But the point here is he's using travel, absence travel, geographic travel as part of his larger conceit as well. So look at the ways that he uses negative via negativity. These are the things that the lover is not. Look at the conceit. And we can look briefly at the first one that I gave you. That was poem 46, sonnet 46. In old age, black was not counted fair. Look at the negative, was not counted fair. It's usually a declarative statement, or if it were, it bore not beauty's name, but now is black beauty's successive heir, and beauty slandered with a bastard shame. And the poem ends with a reference or references the lover, and this is the mistress, the female. The eyebrows are black, and so he's starting with this discussion of in old age, black was not counted fair. It did not have beauty's name until you had blackness in your brow. Sorry, can't talk. It's kind of late. And look at, I mean, there's still some of the same poetic distinctions we see in our modern poetry, but now is black beauties. Look at the alliteration. And in this one I have trouble with. It's line 4. If you do your poetry analysis for this week on this poem, I'd love to hear your reading. This poem, and beauty slandered with a bastard shame. Try to work out logic. If something's unclear, just slowly work it out. A bastard in this sense, and we think of Game of Thrones or something like that, would be someone who's born illegitimately, whatever that means. So we have heir, bastard. He's using lots of birthing and successors. And the successor in a patriarchal society like Elizabethan times would need to be male. But this notion that beauty's heir, I don't know if there's the pronoun issue here because it's written to his mistress. There's this mistress that he writes to as well. Beauty can't be slandered with its bastard of being black because black is good in the original succession of things. I think I didn't do well with that. But the idea would be, I think he's inverting the traditional notion of blackness, and blackness is now a point of beauty. And keep in mind, he does have physical beauty as well as inward beauty, and that's much of what poem 127 discusses, is this war between the mortal heart, my eye and my heart. His world does incorporate the carnal, the visual, the bodily, the corporeal. All those things are kind of embedded within this particular poem. But the blackness, this element makes this poem, I think, the most complex of the 3 poems that you're reading for this week. And you really have to work through some of the poetic elements that he uses and negative traits that he lists, as we talked about before. So I think you're going to like these 3 poems. They're just things to digest, things to spend time on, and things to do your first full post on. But I hope this course goes well for you, and I hope this lecture gave you a brief introduction. And again, he's using lots of face images in the last one, in 127. He's using the argument of the negative in 109, and he's using kind of a basic legal framework in 109, in it's either 46 or 109, that is the framework for love too. So you have lots of interesting conceits going on in his poetry. I'll leave you there. Have a great week. Goodbye.